Welcome, listeners. I'm Silas, your sleepy storyteller, pulling you down the rabbit hole of time, where dreams and memories intertwine. If you enjoy these videos, please tap the like button. It really helps. Also, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you can keep drifting along on your sleepy journey through history. And before we wander down the rabbit hole, share your city and time in the comments. I love imagining our journey threading through every ticking clock. Now, take a moment to find a comfortable resting position. Close your eyes gently, and in your own time, allow yourself to sink into the quiet atmosphere of the past as we begin our slow journey together. Tonight, my walk carries me into the spring of 2020, into the very heart of Manhattan. Times Square, the so-called crossroads of the world, rises around me. Towering walls of light still blaze in every direction, splashing color across slick pavement. But the world that usually surrounds them is missing. I pause at the edge of the square, as though standing at the mouth of some enormous, glowing cavern. All around me, screens shimmer with moving images, faces smiling, products gleaming, stories flickering in endless repetition. But beneath this electric sky, the earth feels quiet, emptied of the people who normally fill every inch of space. I step forward, and the first thing I feel is the dampness of mist brushing against my cheeks. The air is cool, heavy, touched with rain and electricity. My footsteps sound too loud on the pavement, their echoes bouncing where once they would have been swallowed by a tide of voices, horns, and music. The brightest place on earth has fallen strangely hollow. The city that never sleeps has closed its eyes. I move slowly, almost reverently, into the square. It feels like I've stumbled onto a stage after the play has ended. Lights still blazing, curtains half drawn, but the actors gone. The spectacle is still here, yet the audience has vanished. I let myself drift deeper, my senses pulling me into every detail. Above me, the billboards burn with restless color. They advertise perfumes, cars, streaming services, vacations that no one is taking. One screen shows an island beach, golden sand, turquoise waves, people laughing together without masks or fear. The image feels like a dream now, a memory from another life. The mist catches the light, scattering it into tiny halos that drift around the signs like phantom fireflies. It's beautiful, but also haunting, like walking through the echo of a festival that ended years ago. The street beneath my feet glistens with rain, every puddle a mirror reflecting the kaleidoscope above. Neon pinks and electric blues stretch into liquid streaks, so bright they look alive. I slow my pace, almost tiptoeing, as if afraid to disturb the fragile balance of silence and light. The air tastes different here, metallic, damp, tinged with faint traces of disinfectant. I breathe it in slowly, and it feels sharp in my lungs, like the ghost of bleach clinging to the night. The usual aromas are gone. No roasting peanuts from carts, no steam rising from pretzel vendors, no drifting perfume from tourists brushing past. The silence extends to smell itself, as though the city's very breath has been taken away. And the quiet is not absolute. It's layered, textured, alive in its own way. Somewhere far off, I hear the faint roll of a subway car beneath the ground, its wheels clattering like a distant memory. Above me, the soft hum of electricity seeps from the giant billboards, a constant buzz that feels almost like a heartbeat. And then, fainter still, the drip of water falling from a ledge, tapping rhythmically into a puddle below. Each sound stands alone now, naked and sharp against the emptiness. In the Times Square of memory, noise is a flood. Tonight, it is a single droplet falling into still water. I turn my gaze toward the great red steps above the TKTS booth. Once, they were always crowded. Tourists with cameras slung around their necks, couples leaning against one another, friends laughing, musicians strumming guitars below. But tonight, they are utterly deserted. The steps gleam with rain, their crimson surface reflecting against the black puddles at their base, like a beacon no one is here to climb. I walk closer, letting the sight sink into me. The emptiness is theatrical, surreal, as though the world has been rehearsing for an apocalypse play, and I've wandered into the set before opening night. Even the police stationed nearby seem ghost-like. Two officers stand under the shadow of a billboard, their radios murmuring quietly, the bursts of static loud in the stillness. They shift their weight, their eyes darting across the emptiness as though unsure what they are protecting. In a place designed to hold 1,000 distractions, there is suddenly nothing for them to watch. A lone taxi drifts past, its tires hissing softly against the wet street. Its yellow paint glows in the neon light, like a candle flickering through fog. The driver's face is hidden behind glass and reflection. And just as quickly as it came, the taxi slips away again, leaving me in stillness once more. I stop in the very center of the square. Here, where the crossroads of Broadway and 7th Avenue collide, I close my eyes and let myself feel the space. I feel the cool mist gathering on my skin, each droplet tiny and delicate against my cheeks. I feel the silence pressing on my shoulders, heavier than any crowd I have ever stood among. I feel the distance, an emptiness, not just of bodies, but of energy, laughter, chaos, and life. This is not the Times Square I know. This is a ghost of it, its skeleton bathed in light, stripped of flesh and motion. When I open my eyes again, I see the billboards shining as defiantly as ever. Some urge me to come together. Others shout promises of escape, fly away, experience the magic. Their words land differently now, hanging heavy in the empty air. Each feels like a broken promise, an echo from before the world changed. I let my thoughts wander backward to the last time I stood here in the noise. The square had pulsed with bodies, each moving at their own frantic rhythm. There were performers in costumes, tourists staring skyward, commuters rushing past, and the endless chorus of honking horns. Standing shoulder to shoulder with thousands of strangers, I had always thought of this place as overwhelming, chaotic, alive. Now, stripped bare, it feels almost holy. I walk forward again, slowly, carefully. The echo of my own footsteps becomes a companion, bouncing off glass and steel, then fading before returning again. I find myself listening to it the way one listens to a heartbeat, steady and grounding. It reminds me that though the world has paused, though the square is emptied, though fear hangs thick as mist, the city still lives. Its pulse is simply slower now. And so I keep walking, deeper into the hollow glow. Every step is a meditation, every breath a reminder. Times Square, the place where people once celebrated every new year, where the world gathered to shout and laugh and watch the ball drop, now belongs to silence. And in that silence, I feel something unexpected. Not just grief, not just loss, but reverence. For the first time, I see the bones of this place, stripped of its noise, its masks of motion. For the first time, I can hear its breath. The city has closed its eyes, but it is not gone. It is resting. And I, Silas, the Sleepy Storyteller, am here to walk its dreams. Times Square has always been a symphony of motion. I can almost hear it now, as if the city is teasing me with its memory. Yellow taxis cutting through traffic like notes in a brass section, their horns blasting quick improvisations. Strangers brushing past one another in hurried steps, their chatter rising in countless languages, overlapping like violins in a restless score. Street performers holding their corners with painted smiles, juggling fire or blasting saxophones, demanding attention in a place where attention is a currency. It was never quiet here, not one, and yet tonight there is nothing. I stand in the center of the square, where thousands once pressed shoulder to shoulder, and all I hear is the faint pulse of electricity in the billboards above. The sound is steady, like a faint organ hum, holding one endless note. A single car passes down 7th Avenue, tires hissing as they cut through rainwater pooled in the gutter. Its headlights flare against the storefront glass, and for an instant, the whole block glows as if alive again. Then it is gone, swallowed into the distance, leaving me stranded in the hush once more. I turn toward Broadway. Normally, it would be alive with theater-goers, lines snaking down the sidewalks, voices full of anticipation, the air thick with perfume, popcorn, and street pretzels. Tonight, every theater is sealed shut. Their facades loom like mausoleums, dark but for the dim glow of the marquees. I move closer to one, the Winter Garden, its sign still flashing the Music Man in bright white bulbs. The letters shine as if the curtain might rise at any moment, but the doors below are locked, chained, and dark. Behind the glass, posters of smiling cast members grin into the void, caught forever in a performance that never arrived. The emptiness here feels sharper than in the square. These buildings are made for sound. Applause, music, the rush of dialogue, and the absence is not silence but suffocation, like lungs waiting to fill. I press my palm lightly to the cool glass of the theater door. It gives nothing back, only a faint tremor from the neon above, a reminder that the lights will always outlast the people beneath them. The restaurants that crowd this stretch of Broadway are dark too. Chairs stacked on tables, menus curling behind the glass. A faded sign taped to one door reads, "Closed. Stay safe. We'll be back soon." The handwriting is bold, almost cheerful, but the ink has begun to bleed from dampness, as if even the optimism is dissolving with time. A lone delivery bicycle leans against a lamppost, its wheels still wet from the rain. No rider, no bag, just the skeleton of motion left behind. I walk past, and for a moment I hear the faint scuttle of something small, perhaps a rat darting along the curb, emboldened by the vacancy of streets usually dominated by people. In the stillness, even the shuffle of tiny claws against metal grates seems loud, like an unexpected solo breaking the quiet symphony. Times Square has always prided itself on never sleeping. That boast feels bitter now. For the first time in decades, the city is not awake, not alive, but in a kind of coma. The lights shine, yes, but they shine for no one. It's a show with no audience. A voice calling into a room emptied of air. I stop at the corner of 46th Street and look down its length. Normally, this side street would be thick with taxis dropping off theatergoers, with ushers guiding lines, with smokers ducking out for a quick drag during intermission. Tonight, it is a tunnel of shadows. Streetlights glint against wet pavement, stretching into the distance like a runway no plane will ever land upon. I take a few slow steps into the street. The sound of my footfalls against the soaked asphalt is strangely sharp. They echo back to me, bouncing between the walls of shuttered theaters and locked doors, multiplying until it sounds as if someone else is walking beside me. I pause, listening, waiting. The echo fades, leaving me alone once again. At the next corner, a billboard plays a trailer for a film. Explosions burst in high definition. Actors deliver lines with polished intensity, but no one is here to see them. Their urgency feels hollow, a performance for ghosts. It reminds me how fragile attention is. Entire industries depend on eyes and ears, on people leaning forward in the dark together, on strangers clapping in unison. And when those strangers vanish, when seats stay empty, the art remains, but it is strangely powerless, like a violin abandoned on a chair, strings still humming, but no hand to guide the bow. I walk on, turning my gaze upward toward the towers that frame the square. The lights are relentless, throwing their glow into every crack and puddle. But without the people, the scale feels exaggerated, almost monstrous. Each billboard shouts into the void, too bright, too large, too loud, while the city below refuses to answer. I imagine the square as it was, at midnight on New Year's Eve. A million voices chanting the countdown, confetti falling like a storm of paper snow. That memory presses against the silence here, as though two realities are colliding. The world that was and the world that is. I can feel the tension of both at once, like walking through a photograph where the people have been erased, but their energy still lingers, vibrating faintly in the air. A gust of wind slides between the towers, carrying with it the faint metallic rattle of a loose sign. The sound clinks faintly, like a bell tolling in the distance. It repeats over and over until it blends with the soft hiss of the rain returning. I close my eyes for a moment. With the usual sounds gone, every small detail rises to the surface. The drip of water into a clogged storm drain, the hum of a single streetlight, the rustle of a torn paper bag tumbling along the gutter. Together, these scraps form their own fragile music, quiet, irregular, but alive. The city is not silent, I realize. It is whispering, stripped of its grandeur, reduced to bare bones. And perhaps that is what makes it beautiful. I stop at the middle of Broadway and glance back toward the square. The glow of its billboards looks strangely soft from this angle, diffused by the mist. The streets stretch out around me like veins without blood, pathways without purpose. Yet even here, I sense something waiting. The city is paused, not ended. The lights hold vigil. The billboards keep shining. The buildings stand ready to swallow noise again. But for now, there is only me. My footsteps, my breath, my heartbeat pacing through the hollow center of the crossroads of the world. The silence presses close, not on my shoulders this time, but curling around my ankles, tugging like unseen water, reminding me that the square has always been built on movement, and tonight I am its only current. Every storefront bears the scars of the shutdown. Iron gates pulled low, padlocks gleaming faintly under the drizzle. Signs in windows, closed until further notice. Dates scrawled in black marker fade into streaks of rain, their optimism now ghosts, reminders of plans that never came to pass. The streets are empty, yet the emptiness itself feels heavy, pressing with a quiet insistence, a stillness that seems almost unnatural in a city that never sleeps. Broadway itself, usually a cacophony of music, chatter, and the clatter of footsteps, feels frozen in amber. Posters cling to theater walls, their colors defiant against the gray sky. Hamilton, Wicked, The Lion King. Each one a promise, suspended like laughter caught mid-throat. The doors they advertise are chained and locked. Glass panes are lined with crisscrossing locks, steel bars forming a cage around the excitement that once drew crowds from every corner of the globe. I walk slowly, the click of my shoes on wet pavement amplified against the quiet. It feels intrusive, almost sacrilegious, like the sound of an intruder in a cathedral. A theater marquee flickers overhead, cycling through showtimes that no one will see. Its bulbs burn stubbornly against the dark, as if refusing to surrender to the absence. But it is a performance without audience, a chorus line bowing to empty seats. A masked figure passes, shoulders hunched, grocery bags swinging precariously at his side. The plastic rustles with each step, a nervous percussion. He keeps his gaze down, careful not to meet mine. The mist swallows him, and in a heartbeat, he is gone, leaving only the echo of his hurried steps. Two officers stand beneath a flickering tower screen, their presence stark in the stillness. Radios crackle, spitting bursts of static and clipped commands. Their voices, sharp and deliberate, cut across the emptiness like a scalpel. One officer scans the street, eyes narrowing beneath his cap, while the other rests a hand on his holstered sidearm. In this city of shadows, their authority feels magnified, almost fragile, a single line of defense against the creeping chaos. The lockdown has changed everything. While the streets appear empty, opportunity has moved in like smoke, curling around the city's corners. Commercial spaces, restaurants, shops, small businesses stand exposed, their doors unguarded, their contents vulnerable. In the absence of crowds, property crime has quietly surged. Windows shattered, doors pried open, cash registers rifled through. Even the smallest of stores, once bustling with tourists and locals alike, have become targets for those willing to walk the empty streets in search of gain. I turned down a narrow avenue, lined with bodega fronts and small eateries, their metal shutters drawn low. One window is smashed, shards of glass glittering across the pavement like dangerous stars. Inside, shelves are tipped over, tins and jars rolled into corners, the remnants of human negligence and opportunism scattered across linoleum floors. Rain seeps in, washing the evidence into the street, but it cannot erase the sense of violation that lingers. The city, usually a living symphony of motion, is now a landscape of fragility. Its heartbeat has become irregular, sometimes muted, sometimes sharp, sometimes stolen entirely. Violence has persisted, shifting forms with the New World Order. Guns have not gone quiet, they have merely adapted. Domestic violence hides behind closed doors, its echoes trapped within walls. And out in the empty avenues, those who prey upon abandoned commercial property move silently, leaving traces that are subtle but unmistakable. I continue, the familiar scents of the square. Roasting peanuts, hot pizza, coffee, perfume, gone. In their place, the air is metallic, damp, and faintly chemical. Disinfectant clings to the pavement, drifting from vents, curling around corners, rising from the grates like ghostly steam. I draw a breath, tasting it, feeling the raw sterility scrape against my tongue. This is a city scrubbed clean, but in its cleansing, scars remain, etched deep into the bones of buildings, the surfaces of streets, and the very air. Ahead, a black SUV slows to a crawl. The dark glass reflects the neon above, and I notice the engine hum low, almost imperceptible. My pulse quickens. There is no one else here, yet the vehicle feels alive, predatory. It lingers at the curb, idling, tires whispering across wet asphalt. The driver's eyes are hidden in the shadows behind tinted glass, but the weight of his gaze seems to pierce through the windshield, following me as I pass. A chill creeps along my spine. The SUV inches forward, moving with the subtle menace of a cat stalking a bird. I quicken my steps, though I know the streets are slippery and wet. The vehicle mirrors my pace. Every puddle reflects the threat back at me. The dark chrome and wet asphalt blending into a world that feels suddenly hostile. I can hear the faint click of the turn signal, a mechanical heartbeat, counting down towards something unknown. I glance at the rearview mirror of a parked car, catching the faint outline of the SUV. The engine still hums low, and the tires glisten in the streetlights like the claws of some immense silent creature. It is close enough now that I feel its presence, almost tactile, a pressure that settles in my chest. The streets are empty, the city's usual defenses absent, and I'm alone with this shadow, with the uncertainty of what comes next. It slips past me without a sound, the sudden movement startling. I catch a glimpse of the driver's hand, gloved, deliberate, resting on the steering wheel, but I cannot read the intentions behind the mask of tinted glass. The vehicle disappears into the mist of a side street, leaving me shaken, reminding me how fragile even the illusion of safety has become. A row of souvenir shops lines the next block, windows dark, mannequins frozen in perpetual smiles. I Love New York shirts stretch across torsos that will never move again. Inside, keychains topple in silent protests. Postcards curl at the edges, dampened by rain. This city, once alive with commerce, conversation, and carelessness, now feels like a paused stage, its actors absent, its stories frozen mid-gesture. I pass a pharmacy, its door illuminated with a faint fluorescent glow. A handwritten sign in the window warns, "Limit one per customer." Inside, shelves are stripped bare, except for a few remaining bottles. A man in scrubs moves slowly down an aisle, shoulders slumped, mask hiding the exhaustion etched into his face. I imagine the countless unseen battles, patience, shortages, exhaustion, and realize how thin the thread is that separates order from chaos. The city's soundtrack is different now. Gone are the honking taxis, the murmur of tourists, the footsteps rushing to meet appointments. Instead, I hear the squeak of gates shifting in the wind, the plop of rain into puddles, the hum of neon struggling against darkness. Occasionally, a siren pierces the stillness, but it is distant, a reminder that the city has not abandoned its rules entirely, only that enforcement has become selective, reactive. I cross a normally chaotic intersection. Taxi lights would usually swarm, horns blaring in frantic rhythm, but tonight, only one sits crooked at the curb. The driver scrolls through his phone, his mask below his chin. His eyes reflect the glow of the screen like lanterns in a tomb. I step over a puddle, each motion measured, each footfall private, yet somehow observed. Even emptiness seems aware tonight, tense, expectant. A theater billboard flickers above, advertising a blockbuster never premiered. Explosions bloom across the screen, actors' mouths opening in silent shouts. The speakers are off, and I am left watching the action without sound. It is eerie, almost cruel. The suggestion of life, movement, drama, and defiance without the accompaniment of reality. The silence behind the images makes me feel small, a single witness to the ghosts of potential audiences and the empty promise of joy. A gust of wind sweeps down the avenue, tossing scraps of paper, old receipts, forgotten flyers, crumpled lottery tickets into the gutter. They spin and flutter, reminders of lives paused and scattered. I notice the storefronts again. Shattered glass, pried locks, evidence of someone's desperate hands reaching for opportunity. Commercial crime has not paused with the rest of the world. It has adapted. It prowls in the shadows, a quiet predator taking advantage of absence. I lean against a railing, watching the rain form silver streams along the curb, carrying debris into the drains. My reflection stares back, distorted by ripples and shadow. The city, feels the same, known yet unrecognizable. Every broken window, every empty shelf, every darkened doorway is a reminder of the tension coiled beneath the surface. The weight of the lockdown presses not in a roar, but in a steady, unrelenting rhythm. It creeps, seeps, settles, and with it comes an awareness that danger walks beside absence, that crime moves silently while the world pauses, and that even in the stillness, life can fracture in unpredictable ways. I take a slow, deliberate breath, tasting the metallic tang of disinfectant, rain, and asphalt. The city is paused, yes, but it is not inert. Violence, opportunism, and fear persist, moving through empty streets and broken storefronts, leaving traces that cannot be scrubbed away. I exhale, and the air feels heavier, denser, pressed into my lungs and my thoughts alike. The city is quiet, but it carries the weight of unseen steps. The memory of those who acted when the lights went out. The silent predators who moved through shadows. Even absence has a pulse, and I feel it now, in rhythm with my own heart. The city is paused, but the pause has a gravity all its own. The rain has eased into a mist now, clinging to my jacket, softening the sharp edges of neon. I stand in the middle of Times Square, surrounded by billboards that still blaze with restless energy, and yet I feel no life moving through them. Their glow falls on empty sidewalks, locked storefronts, and puddles that hold no reflection but my own. It is here, in this silence, that I feel the weight of history pressing close. I think of another time, another silence. The year 1918, when the Spanish flu swept across this city. Back then, the same streets I walk tonight were hushed under the grip of fear. Theaters closed their doors then, too, their velvet curtains gathering dust while music scores waited unopened on stands. Families kept their distance, wary of even brushing shoulders, their faces pale behind cloth masks, much like the one I wear now. In the archives, there are photographs, black and white images of New Yorkers lined up for vaccines, nurses in makeshift wards, children peering from windows as if the air itself were poison. I can almost hear their footsteps echoing alongside mine, a century apart, yet bound by the same caution. Back then, too, the city felt suspended, breathing shallowly, uncertain when the storm would pass. The silence I hear tonight is not new. It is an echo. And then my mind drifts to 2001. That day when smoke and grief choked the island of Manhattan, when sirens wailed without pause and faces carried ash instead of smiles. I remember how Broadway went dark then as well. Only 2 nights, but those nights stretched into eternity for the city. When the lights finally returned, they burned brighter than ever. Each curtain that rose became more than a performance. It became defiance, resilience etched in song and spotlight. The applause then wasn't just appreciation, it was survival, a collective heartbeat thundering through velvet halls. I stand beneath one of those very theaters now, its marquee still lit, promising laughter, songs, and spectacle, but its doors sealed, padlocked tight. I trace the edge of the sign with my eyes and imagine the audience that never arrived, the actors whose final bows were stolen, the orchestras whose music was silenced mid-note. Compared to 2001, this silence feels stranger. Back then, grief was everywhere, but it was visible. Crowds gathered, candles lit, tears fell in unison. Tonight, the grief is hidden, tucked behind apartment doors, muffled by masks, invisible but no less heavy. And then, my thoughts slip further back, into a different New York entirely. The Times Square of the 1970s and 80s. I picture the grit, the neon barely masking decay, the streets alive with hustlers, graffiti, and danger. It was a place of crime, of shadows and temptation, a theater of its own chaos. Back then, people warned each other not to wander here after dark. Drugs whispered through alleyways. Hustlers leaned against storefronts. The pulse of the city was erratic, reckless, but always alive. Even in its most chaotic years, Times Square was never like this. It was unruly, even terrifying, but never empty. There was always movement, always the rhythm of footsteps, always the friction of strangers colliding. Tonight, the square is stripped of even that. The danger now is invisible. It is not a knife glinting in the shadows or a deal whispered in an alley. It is the breath of the person beside you, the unseen drift of particles in the air. The menace has no face, no voice, no body, and that makes the stillness all the more unsettling. I keep walking slowly down Broadway, the soles of my shoes tapping softly against the slick pavement. My reflection keeps me company in the puddles, stretching and warping with each step. The city feels like it has been locked inside a snow globe, shaken once, and then left suspended in motionless flakes. I pass a row of theaters, each one a vault of silence. Their posters are frozen in time. Smiling faces, bold titles, dramatic poses meant to lure audiences who never arrived. Some posters have begun to peel at the corners, the damp curling them away from the glass. The smiles on those faces feel strange now, their joy trapped behind padlocks and empty lobbies. The square itself feels like a stage after the actors have left. Props abandoned, lights still burning, but no one to watch. The silence tonight feels different from any of those past crises. It is not destruction, but pause. Not collapse, but suspension. The city has not fallen. It is holding its breath. The air around me carries that sense of waiting. The rain drips steadily from the edge of a traffic light, pooling in the cracks of the pavement. Somewhere far off, I hear the rumble of a subway, its wheels screeching against tracks, but it fades quickly, swallowed by stillness. Even the pigeons, those eternal companions of the square, are fewer tonight. One perches on a lamppost above me, feathers puffed against the damp, eyes unblinking as it surveys the emptiness. Its wings remain folded, as if even it senses the futility of flight. I pause beneath it, listening to the faint shuffle of its claws against metal. It is the only other sound besides the whisper of rain. I think again of the Spanish flu, the photographs of masked crowds outside City Hall, the fear of gathering, the hush of theaters gone dark. I imagine walking through these same streets in 1918, horse-drawn carriages rattling past shuttered shops, headlines shouting numbers of the dead, the uncertainty of when life might resume. And I realize, though the details differ, the feeling is the same. A city paused, its heartbeat slowed, its rhythm disrupted. We are not the first to walk through silence like this, and we will not be the last. I stop near the red glow of a billboard looping a travel commercial. Palm trees sway across the screen. Beaches gleam under sun. Couples laugh over cocktails. The world it promises feels impossibly distant, a dream from another lifetime. The images flicker against my wet jacket, casting me in colors of a paradise I cannot touch. Behind me, the sound of footsteps approaches. I turn slightly, expecting a rush of people, but it is only one man. He is masked, hands stuffed deep into his coat pockets, his stride brisk. He doesn't look at me. He doesn't look at the billboards. He moves quickly, head bowed, as though chased by the very air. Within moments, he is gone, swallowed by the shadows. The square swallows people whole now. One moment, they appear at the edge of my vision. The next, they are gone, leaving no trace but the echo of footsteps. And here is the strangest part of all. This stillness doesn't feel final. In 2001, the grief was sharp, immediate, and devastating. But from it came resilience. In the 1970s, the chaos was constant, grinding, demanding daily survival. But this silence feels like the space between breaths. The pause before the orchestra resumes. The hush before a curtain rises. I close my eyes for a moment and feel it. Not destruction, but suspension. An entire city, an entire world has pressed pause on its heartbeat. The thought settles into me like the mist itself, clinging, cool, inescapable. When I open my eyes again, the square is still there, glowing, waiting, holding its breath with me, and I keep walking, the shadows of other crises trailing at my heels, whispering that silence, too, is part of history. I continue my walk, the mist curling around my ankles, catching the neon glow and refracting it into faint prisms that hover like restless spirits. The sidewalks glisten under my steps, slick with rain, reflecting shards of color from the towering screens above. Times Square feels less like a crossroads and more like a cathedral abandoned in mid-prayer. The silence presses into me, a tangible presence, heavier than any crowd I've ever walked among. Up ahead, the Brill Building rises from the street like a monolith of history. 1619 Broadway. It reads above the doors in chipped brass lettering. Normally, the entrance would swarm with hopeful songwriters, agents, and dreamers, each carrying the weight of ambition. Tonight, it is a hollow husk. The glass windows are fogged over from damp air, reflecting the flickering lights across the avenue in broken, angular patterns. I pause for a moment, letting the building's history settle on me. It was here, decades ago, that the pulse of music poured out of its walls. Tin Pan Alley echoes, rock and roll's first tremors, voices that would become immortal. I can almost hear them faintly, layered beneath the hum of neon, a chorus for ghosts. From Brill, I drift southward, and the Hudson Theater comes into view, perched on 44th Street, like a watchful sentinel. Its marquee sign flickers erratically, the bulbs sputtering between darkness and an almost threatening glow. Each flash of light illuminates the wet street for a heartbeat, then vanishes, leaving shadows that seem to stretch and lean toward me. I slow my pace. There is something about the uneven rhythm of that sign, an uneasy stutter that makes me feel like I am being watched, though no one is near. The letters spelling Hudson Theater pulse in the half-light, casting eerie reflections across the mist. I catch a glimpse of my own eyes in the wet asphalt, wide and unblinking, mirroring the rhythm of the flicker above. A soft, metallic scrape reaches me from somewhere close by. I stop, mid-step, straining to hear. For a moment, the mist carries nothing but the distant hum of electricity. Then the noise repeats, faint but deliberate, like fingernails brushing against a metal railing. My pulse quickens, and a shiver travels up my spine. There is no one there, yet the emptiness itself feels alive, observing, patient. The city, stripped bare of bodies, has taken on a new kind of predator, anticipation. The danger is invisible but persistent, creeping along the wet stones and puddles, following me silently. I step past the Hudson Theater, keeping to the center of the street where the mist is thinnest. Broadway opens ahead into the heart of Times Square proper, the space where neon signs once clashed in a riot of color and sound. The farther I go, the denser the glow becomes, spilling out from giant screens that tower like urban cliffs. I walk slowly, deliberately, savoring the sound of my own boots against the pavement. Each tap echoes across the empty avenues, a solitary percussion in a city used to cacophony. Even the echoes are fractured here, breaking against dark windows, bouncing between steel walls, only to dissolve into silence. I glance at the side streets. Normally, they would teem with taxis, performers, street vendors, and tourists jostling for space. Tonight, they are tunnels of shadow. Trash drifts in the faint wind, loose scraps of paper spiraling across puddles, and in every reflective surface, the wet asphalt, glass door panels, puddles, I glimpse fleeting shadows that aren't my own. I tighten the straps of my backpack and continue. A small, fragile human moving through a cathedral of neon. One alleyway coughs up a faint chemical smell, antiseptic, mixing with the wet rot of paper and dirt. I hesitate, imagining the countless small violations that have taken place here while the city sleeps under lockdown. Shattered windows, ransacked stores, abandoned carts, scattered coins glinting in puddles like tiny warnings. There is danger in absence, a subtle, predatory current that moves unseen through spaces emptied of human vigilance. I feel it brushing against me, brushing through my hair like a cold finger. I am alone, yet not alone. I reach a small plaza, unremarkable but for a single, flickering billboard promoting a Broadway show that never opened its doors. The images are sharp, faces frozen mid-laugh, arms raised mid-dance, but the voices are gone. I watch the flicker play across the wet stone, imagining those actors trapped forever in this suspended motion. The air here carries a different sound, a soft, almost imperceptible vibration, like the faint hum of a subsonic wave threaded through the mist. My teeth chatter slightly in response, not from cold, but from a sense that something unseen is moving nearby, just beyond perception. I keep walking, my path tracing the invisible veins of Times Square, deeper into its glowing core. The streets narrow, the lights above multiplying, banners and billboards colliding in a chaotic overlay of advertising. The mist thickens around the bases of buildings, curling up from the drains, and I find my footsteps swallowed more quickly by the dampened streets. Reflections stretch into long ghostly streaks, and in them I see shapes moving that vanish when I look directly. Figures glimpsed only in the corner of the eye. The eeriness presses against my ribs, a weight that isn't entirely fear, but something akin to it, respect, caution, and awe mingled together. Somewhere off to my left, a news ticker scrolls endlessly, its headlines promising recovery, vaccines, openings, yet each message feels like a hollow echo. The words mean nothing to the empty streets, the vacant theaters, the silent sidewalks. They are instructions to ghosts. I catch a sudden flash out of the corner of my eye, a shadow stretching across a wall, elongated by the neon. I whirl, but the space behind me is empty, only mist curling from the drain. My pulse hammers, my breathing quickens. The city is teaching me patience, urging me to trust the echo, to hear the silence. I pass a row of storefronts, their windows fogged or cracked, revealing the skeletal remains of shops. A candy store shows shelves half empty, wrappers clinging to damp cardboard boxes. A clothing boutique displays mannequins frozen mid-pose, coats zipped, scarves draped, expressions fixed in joy that never comes. Each window feels like a frame, a diorama of life paused mid-motion, and I am a visitor in a gallery of absence. The glow from towering screens above reflects off the puddles, blending colors into impossible shades. I notice one screen showing a nighttime cityscape, eerily similar to the one I walk through. The lights pulse in rhythm with my heartbeat, the image uncanny in its synchronicity. I shake my head, trying to break the spell, but the mist and reflections conspire to keep me unsteady. Each step now feels as though I am moving through a dream, aware that the boundaries of reality have thinned. I walk past an old newsstand, its shelves empty save for a single, water-stained newspaper clinging to the metal rack. The headline is faded, unreadable from this distance, yet I feel its weight pressing toward me. There is a suggestion of a story, a fragment of a life, hanging in the air like smoke. I consider picking it up, but something stops me, a premonition of breaking a boundary that does not belong to me, a whispered warning from the quiet itself. I leave it where it rests, soaked and patient, a relic of something that once moved, once mattered. Further ahead, the billboards grow brighter, more aggressive. They flash in rhythm with the traffic lights at intersections where no cars wait. The light feels almost tactile, pushing against my skin, warm then icy in alternating bursts. My shadow stretches across the street, long and thin, twisting with each flicker until I lose sight of its form entirely. The mist hides my legs, then my torso, then my reflection, leaving only the sense of movement. I am a ghost walking through ghosts, an observer and participant in a suspended city. A gust of wind blows through the avenues, carrying with it scraps of paper, a discarded face mask, the scent of wet asphalt, and something faintly metallic. It brushes past my face like a warning, stirring the mist into whirls that coalesce into shapes that vanish as I stare at them. I hear something then, a faint tapping, echoing behind me, soft but insistent. I spin. Nothing. I continue, my pace deliberate now, ears straining, senses heightened. The sound repeats, now closer, faster, yet still indistinct. It could be a loose shutter, a branch, or perhaps something else. I reach the edge of the main square proper, where the glow intensifies, signals crossing each other. Digital advertisements competing for attention in the absence of humans. I pause in the center of the street, letting the enormity of it wash over me. The mist, the neon, the flickering lights, all of it conspires to make the city feel alive, yet alien. Here, at the heart of Times Square, I realize the truth of the night. The city has survived, but it has changed. Danger is not only present in crime or accident, it lurks in absence, in expectation, in the invisible currents of a world paused. I take a breath, letting the cold mist fill my lungs. I am alone, yes, but the city is speaking to me. Not in words, not in motion, but in the rhythm of the lights, the drip of water, the hum of electricity. It is alive, patient, waiting. And I, Silas, the sleepy storyteller, walk on, deeper into the hollow heart of Manhattan, ready to follow the pulse wherever it leads. I reach the southern edge of Times Square, the mist curling around streetlights like slow-moving spirits. The rain has eased into a whisper now, the streets glistening as if brushed with silver. I pause at the intersection near Times Square Tower, the modern glass monolith reflecting the fragmented neon around it. In daylight, it is polished, sleek, a testament to commerce and ambition. Tonight, it feels different. The smooth windows mirror a hollow world, an empty, undisturbed stage, and I cannot help but notice the faint pulse of light inside some offices. Here and there, someone sits at a desk, hunched over screens, their existence hinted at by a single, solitary glow. They are invisible to the city's usual rush, yet profoundly present in this suspended moment. I walk past the tower slowly, letting my eyes trace the grid of windows. Each pane seems like a tiny story paused mid-action. A flicker of movement, a person adjusting a monitor, shifting in a chair, catches my attention, and I imagine the whispers and hum of their lives behind glass. The building is an observer, as much as it is observed, a sentinel holding memories of late nights, missed meals, hurried calls, and fleeting triumphs. Times Square Tower is a reminder that the city's pulse has not vanished. It has simply contracted, hiding in pockets where only quiet diligence remains. I feel a strange kinship with those unseen figures, both of us alone in a world accustomed to constant motion, each of us threading through silence like a needle through fabric. The wind gusts across West 41st Street, carrying a metallic tang and the faint scent of ozone from the billboards overhead. I shiver and pull my jacket tighter, but not entirely from cold. There is something in this part of the square, a tension I cannot name, that makes me slow my steps. The reflections in the puddles shimmer like fractured mirrors, bending light in ways that make the pavement look almost alive. For a moment, I half expect to see a shadow detach itself from a lamppost, walking toward me, only to vanish when I blink. The city is not dangerous in the conventional sense tonight. No gangs, no cars, no shouting. But the absence of its usual energy imbues everything with a peculiar edge, as though the streets themselves are holding their breath, waiting for a secret I am not yet privy to. I turn my attention forward to the triangular island at the heart of the square, One Times Square. Even in the sparse night, its presence dominates, towering above the fog like an immovable monolith. Normally, this is the place of jubilation, of confetti storms and shouts of thousands, of cameras capturing a collective heartbeat. Tonight, it is a silent guardian. Its sides glow with screens looping advertisements that no one will watch. The New Year's Eve ball rests above it, dormant, a polished globe of expectation paused mid-descent. I stop in the shadow of the building, staring up at it, and feel the weight of the absence here as though it were physical. There are no revelers pressed against the railings, no cheers to shake the glass, no countdown to mark the turning of time. Just the hum of electricity, the flicker of lights, and the distant echo of the city's hidden heart. I walk around the base of One Times Square, keeping my eyes on the wet streets. The ground reflects the building's gleaming face, and I feel as if I am moving through a painting where color exists, but the figures have all been erased. The triangular point of the island makes it almost altar-like, a pedestal that bears witness to a century of celebration, unrest, triumph, and tragedy. I imagine every New Year's Eve ever celebrated here, every broadcast transmitted into living rooms across the globe, and I'm struck by the enormity of human persistence. Here, time is both cyclical and linear. The ball will drop again, the crowds will return, and yet tonight it is still, a monument to patience and endurance. From this vantage, I can see the street stretching in every direction, empty but radiant under the kaleidoscope of neon. The mist has thickened slightly, making the city look like a world half remembered, a dream I can almost reach, but not touch. Occasionally, a gust of wind carries the faintest echo of a horn from blocks away, a sound that is almost more imagined than real. I stop walking, letting the moment settle around me. My footsteps on the pavement sound too loud in this quiet, each step a punctuation mark in the silence. For the first time, I noticed the small details I had overlooked in my prior wanderings, the occasional drip from a fire escape, the subtle vibration of a billboard high above, the soft clatter of a loose grate rolling in a puddle. These sounds form a fragile, intricate symphony that exists only in absence. Passing One Times Square, I allow my gaze to drift upward to the ball, imagining it glowing in the night sky, as it does for millions every December. It is a symbol of continuity and hope, a fixture that will not falter even when the world does. The building itself feels alive, a silent sentinel observing each moment of change. I imagine the countless human hands that have worked to keep the ball ready. Engineers, technicians, stagehands, each part of a larger rhythm that pulses beneath the surface of the spectacle. Their labor persists unseen, just as so much of life persisted in the city's shadows during the lockdown. I feel both humbled and comforted by this. The city may sleep, the streets may be empty, but life is still happening within its walls. I walk past, circling the small plaza around the island. The mist rises in whirls, clinging to my jacket, tickling my skin. The cold is not biting but insistent, the way a reminder presses against memory. I pause, reflecting on the journey I have taken through Times Square, from the flickering marquees of the Hudson Theater to the reflective windows of the Brill Building, from the deserted TKTS steps to the hollowed stages and empty restaurants, and now to this pinnacle of the square. Each stop has been a lesson in endurance, a meditation on stillness. I have watched a city shrink in physical presence, but expand in memory, in resilience, in quiet strength. I realize now that the eeriness of this place, its hollow lights, its absent crowds, is not emptiness at all. It is potential. It is a city breathing in private, gathering its energy in preparation for the moment when it will exhale again. Every shuttered storefront, every padlocked theater, every dimly lit office is a story waiting to resume, a narrative suspended but not lost. The silence is not a void. It is a holding pattern, a pause that allows the city to remember itself, to reflect, and to prepare for the return of life. As I turn to leave, I feel a final brush of danger, not one of immediate threat, but of awareness. In a place so stripped of ordinary distractions, the mind begins to notice the unusual. Shadows stretch oddly across puddles. Reflections warp in ways that seem deliberate. A scrap of paper flutters along the curb like a tiny phantom, catching the edge of neon in a sudden flash. The air carries a tension that is electric and fragile, a reminder that even a city in pause is a living organism, capable of surprise, capable of menace. I quicken my step briefly, not from fear, but from recognition. The city is alive, just differently than expected. I pass Times Square Tower once more, glancing up at its windows. Each lit office is a heartbeat, each shadowed floor a quiet breath. I think of the countless people who have passed through its doors, each with their own stories of persistence, isolation, ambition, and endurance. I imagine the building itself as a witness, recording every late night, every hurried exit, every moment of human striving. It is a modern archive, a vessel of lives interwoven with the pulse of the square. Finally, I step away from the main cluster of lights and screens, moving along the periphery of the square. The mist curls around me, the streets glisten, and the neon glow lingers in reflections long after the source has passed from view. I take a slow, deep breath, tasting the sharp tang of rain and metal, inhaling the city itself as one might inhale the last scent of a familiar room before leaving. The quiet presses in around me, not oppressively, but gently, as if encouraging reflection. Times Square has endured pandemics, tragedies, celebrations, and crises. It has absorbed human folly and ambition and alike. Tonight, in its silence, it teaches a different lesson. That endurance is not always loud. That survival is sometimes measured in patience, in stillness, in the quiet vigilance of light against darkness. The glow of the billboards, the steadfast watch of one Times Square, the reflections in Times Square Tower, they are all markers of continuity, proof that the city, no matter how empty it appears, will find its rhythm again. I step away, letting the square recede behind me. The neon fades gradually into mist and shadow. The metallic tang of the streets gives way to the softer scent of rain-dampened asphalt and quiet. I carry with me the echoes of footsteps, the hum of electricity, the fleeting glimpses of human perseverance. Each memory, each reflection, feels like a small lantern lighting the way forward. History often shouts with cannons, with speeches, with crowds. But sometimes its loudest lesson is silence. In that quiet, we discover endurance, reflection, and the subtle persistence of life. The city has closed its eyes, but it is not asleep. It rests, it waits, it remembers. And so do I. Rest easy, friends. The rabbit hole of time holds many more slow steps. Until we meet again, Silas is signing off.